brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.
Hello again, my meddling Scooby Doo fans, and welcome to another review into the world of Scooby Doo. So last time we kicked off my 2025 Halloween special with a review of Season 3, Episode 13 of the Scooby Doo Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We talked about how that episode was a pretty good episode and pretty strong, mainly thanks to Shaggy and Scooby's excellent humor, and the main villain of the episode, the Ghostly Gondolier, being both fun and entertaining and deliciously evil, but also very creepy at times. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 3, Episode 14 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled Don't Go Near the Fortress of Fear, which was released on December 9th, 1978. The short synopsis of the episode is, the gang head to Puerto Rico for a holiday. They visit an ancient fortress where the ghost of General Juan Carlos, who guards the El Moro fortress, warns them to stay away. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 3, Episode 14 of the Scooby Doo Show on the Scooby Doo Wario, the complete series box set. This box set has every episode of Scooby Doo Wario, as well as every episode of the third season of the Scooby Doo Show. If you're wondering why the third season of the Scooby Doo Show is on the Scooby Doo Wario box set, it's because Hanna-Barbera and Warner Bros. Like to falsely advertise the third season of the Scooby Doo Show as a fake third season to Scooby Doo Wario, but I've established in past videos on my channel that this is not the case, and that Scooby Doo Wario only had 2 seasons, while the Scooby Doo Show had 3 seasons. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, I'm not really sure how fans feel about this particular episode. I haven't heard much discussion around this episode, but to be fair, the Scooby Doo Show isn't a highly talked about, TV show in the Scooby Doo franchise, mainly due to the marketing by Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers. So a lot of people don't really know much about it, besides maybe the diehards. But even then, I don't hear a lot of discussion around this episode, so I'm not really sure what kind of episode this may be. So, with that in mind, what do I think of this episode? Do I think this is a good episode that continues to streak to 2 great episodes? Do I think this is a terrible episode that goes back to the terrible ways of Season 3? Or does it go back to being an average episode, and do we have another average episode on our hands and, back to the average ways of Season 3? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the Scooby Doo Show. The episode begins with the gang heading to Puerto Rico for a vacation. When they arrive, they discover that a museum has been robbed of its priceless treasures. They then hear explosions coming from a nearby abandoned fortress and decide to check it out. While they are there, Shaggy and Scooby discover that one of the old cannons is still hot, meaning that it has been used recently. A ghost appears and begins to chase them.
Like on a clear day, I bet you could see all of Puerto Rico from here.
Hot, 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 hot.
Hot? Come on, Scoob, like this cannon probably hasn't been fired in centuries. Zoinks! It is hot. Like, I wonder if those booms we heard were from this cannon.
I don't know.
Yike! Scooby, look behind you.
Out of my fortress! The ghost! Be gone!
Good idea. Like, let's let be-gones be be-gones and split. Couldn't we just, talk it over?
The time for talking is past, senor!
Whoa! Follow me, Scoob!
After escaping, they decide to keep the encounter with the ghost a secret so they won't have to return to the fortress, which is actually a pretty cool character moment for Shaggy and Scooby, because normally they tell the gang about all their encounters with the ghost, but they realize that if they tell them, the gang are going to want to solve the mystery. Unfortunately, the gang find out anyways and want to solve the mystery anyways without Shaggy and Scooby saying anything. But still, I think it's a good character moment for them that they decide to not say anything to them. The next day, the gang go on a fishing trip and decide to ask Captain Eddie about the fortress. According to legend, the El Morro fortress is haunted and guarded by 16th century Spanish general Juan Carlos, who often sets off the cannons. They head back to the fortress to investigate, much to Shaggy and Scooby's dismay. After seeing the ghost, Fred, Velma, and Daphne head to Puerto Rico's Hall of Records, leaving Shaggy and Scooby at the fortress. At the Hall of Records, Daphne discovers a map of Puerto Rico that shows a tunnel leading from the museum to the fortress. Now, something odd and interesting about this episode is that the Hall of Records curator is supposed to be like a suspect. He's acting suspiciously, but we never get any answers on why he's being suspicious and so hostile towards the gang. I don't know if the guy was having a bad day. I don't know if he was doing something suspicious that was unrelated to the ghost of Juan Carlos, or if he was an accomplice to Juan Carlos that never got caught. But yeah, his odd behavior never gets explained. He's chastised the gang for being there, looking at all the books in the Hall of Records, and then chews them out after they find the map, and then looks at them out through the window, and it's never explained why he was acting so weird. So either he was having a bad day, he was doing something suspicious, either unrelated or related to the ghost of Juan Carlos. Velma believes that the robbery at the museum relates to the ghost of Juan Carlos. So the three find the tunnel entrance under a fake phone booth and follow the tunnel to the fortress. They discover all the stolen treasure in the tunnel. Shaggy and Scooby crash down into the tunnel, falling onto a crate full of hollow cannons and parachutes. Velma discovers what is going on and plans a trap for Juan Carlos. After Scooby accidentally traps him, they discover the culprit to be Captain Eddie. This is a good final chase sequence. I like that we find out that the inspector that was following them, Inspector Armendez, was actually a good guy. And I like seeing him help the gang at the end. I think that was cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit like the No Face Zombie Chase episode where the police officer helped them towards the end. I kind of like that the gang teamed up with this inspector to catch the ghost of Juan Carlos. I think that was cool. Something else interesting, though, is that it's never explained how the ghost of Juan Carlos was able to go into I believe it's a dungeon. He went into the dungeon, and the gang were chasing him. But then he somehow came back outside of the dungeon, not through the doorway, but by some other way, and trapped the Fred, Daphne, Velma, and the inspector in the dungeon. Now, how the hell did he get out of the dungeon? Was there a secret passageway or something? Like, it's never explained how he went in, and then the gang went in after him, and then somehow he comes around the side and traps them in the dungeon. Like, unless there's a secret passageway that is not explained at the end, we never find out how he was able to get out of that dungeon. But regardless, a good final chase sequence. Love seeing the gang team up with Inspector Armendez. And Fred's trap ends up working at the end, even though it wasn't quite what he had planned. But I also did think it was cool that the gang were actually all going to be bait this time, and it wasn't just going to be Shaggy and Scooby. But unfortunately, things didn't go according to plan. But still, like, everything worked out, and the ghosts ended up getting captured.
There he is!
Quick, after him. I think we've lost him, Scoob.
The ghost! He went this way.
There he is! Up there!
Now come on, stop me!
He's heading back toward the dungeons. It's a trap.
You are trapped forever, my amigos.
Scooby? Quick, Shag. Pull that lever and let us out.
Get this thing off of me!
You are finished, General Juan Carlos. Or whoever you are.
Captain Eddie!
He had been using the hollow cannonballs and parachutes to send the treasure to his boat, where he then took it out of the country. He used the legend of Juan Carlos as an excuse to shoot off the cannons. He was then taken into custody by Inspector Armendez of the Puerto Rico police, who had been following the gang the entire time. And the episode ends with the mystery solved, and the gang go to enjoy the beach the next day, with Shaggy and Scooby building sandcastles as Fred and the girls watch them. I'm going to give Season 3, Episode 14 of the Scooby Doo Show 5 stars out of 5. This was a surprisingly good episode. I was really surprised at how good this episode really was, because I didn't really expect much going into it, but generally coming out of it, I went through all the aspects of the episode, and they all were good to me. Like, I really enjoyed this episode. And it genuinely surprised me how really good this episode was, and I don't even have any negatives for the episode. I looked through all the aspects of the episode, and I didn't have any single issues with the episode. So everything was on point for me. This was a good episode. This is the best episode of Season 3 so far. And it's definitely not better than Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats, but this was a really pitch-perfect, good Season 3 episode. And it looks like Season 3 has been hitting its stride towards the end of the season. But yeah, I didn't have much expectations going into it. I did think it would... I figured it'd be like maybe average or maybe good. But I did not think it would be excellent and great. So, yeah, I have no negatives for the episode. So we're just going to go right to the positives and talk about all the aspects of the episode and what makes this episode a really good, pitch-perfect 5 out of 5 episode. And, you know, why all the aspects work for me in this episode. So starting with the positives, my first one is I think Fred was good in this episode. He wasn't really much of a leader for me, but I think what Fred did well is that him and Velma kind of shared the role of helping to piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. So I did feel like he did that. And he created a cool trap in this episode. I did like that he had like a trip, wire, and he was going to use one of the pink parachutes to drop on the ghost. I think that was pretty cool. I also like that all of them were going to be bait, and that, it wasn't just going to be Shaggy and Scooby, and they were all going to lure the ghost to that area. And even though that didn't end up happening, his trap did end up working in the end, and I think that was really cool. And yeah, I thought he created a cool trap. I think he helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. Maybe not really a strong leader in this episode, but that's okay, because him and Velma did a good job, helping piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, and he created a cool trap in the episode. Then we have Daphne. Daphne actually helped find one of the clues of the episode, the map of the secret passageway from the museum to the fortress, which was one of the more vital clues of the episode. She also was the one that found the where the passageway specifically was. It was under a fake phone booth, and she, discovered that. So yeah, like Daphne found one of the clues of the episode and helped find one of the more vital clues of the episode. And she was the one that uncovered the secret passageway from the museum to the fortress. Next, we have Velma. Velma helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. I did think the gears were turning in her head. Like Fred, her and Fred were kind of sharing that role of helping to piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. But Velma most certainly did do that. She fulfilled her basic role. It felt like the gears were turning in her head. She was piecing everything together. And yeah, she basically fulfilled her basic role in the episode. So Velma, pretty good in this episode. did her basic function of helping piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, so I thought she was good. And last, but certainly not least, we have Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby, of course, were their usual funny, cowardly selves. I quite enjoyed them in this episode. They were quite cowardly, had a couple of good humorous moments. Their humor wasn't as strong as the last episode. I think the last episode is the funniest episode of the show, maybe even of the franchise. So it wasn't on the level of that humor, but, you know, that's unrealistic for me to expect in, you know, every episode. But the humor was still good. They had a couple good humorous moments. I did like that in this episode, Shaggy and Scooby lied about their first encounter with the ghost. Normally, Shaggy and Scooby tell the gang, you know, about their encounters with the ghost. But this time, they decide, you know what? Why don't we lie about it so that we can get out of this mystery and we don't have to solve it? Which is actually a really nice character moment for Shaggy and Scooby. It may not seem nice on the surface. Like, people might think that, you know, it's mean, like, why would Shaggy and Scooby hide it? I think it's good for their characters because they don't want to get involved. They don't want to solve the mystery. They would rather just enjoy their vacation. And I don't blame them. Unfortunately, Captain Eddie gives information about the fortress being haunted, which prompts Fred, Daphne, Velma to investigate it anyways, despite Shaggy and Scooby not saying anything. And they end up finding out that Shaggy and Scooby had an encounter anyways because Shaggy slips it after Fred, Daphne, and Velma say they're going to go back to the fortress. But at that point, you know, they kind of knew, like, you know, they kind of knew that once they were going back, there was no point in lying anymore. But I did like that they tried to lie and tried to get out of it because it was a good character moment for them. I also did like that Shaggy and Scooby found most of the clues of the episode. They were the ones to find the hollow cannonballs, the pink parachutes, and they were the one to find the hot cannon. So they were the ones that found the majority of the clues of the episode, with Daphne only being the only one that found the map. But everything else Shaggy and Scooby found, and they were the ones that helped capture the villain at the end. Scooby helped capture the villain at the end, although inadvertently he did. And Shaggy helped save Fred, Daphne, Velma, and the Inspector out of the dungeon by, you know, freeing them. So they both played a role, and I felt like Shaggy and Scooby overall were the strongest in this episode. They did a lot in this episode. They fulfilled their basic roles. They had a good character moment about, you know, not telling the gang about their first encounter with the ghost, so they wouldn't have to solve the mystery. They found the majority of the clues, and they both played a role in helping capture the villain at the end and freeing and saving Fred, Daphne, Velma, and the Inspector. I found the villain of the episode to be good as well. So the main villain of the episode is, of course, the ghost of Juan Carlos. The ghost of Juan Carlos was not a scary villain. Far from it. He was actually very goofy and funny and entertaining. But what I like about him is that he's a pretty fun and entertaining villain. So he's not scary, but he's very fun and enjoyable and entertaining to watch. He's also a bit threatening because he threatens the gang's safety as well as the Inspector 3 times in the episode. He tries to kill Shaggy and Scooby early on in the episode, which is probably the most, you know, the most dangerous, you know, one he did. He dropped a load of rubble, you know, to trap Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby. And he almost could have crushed Fred, Daphne, Velma with that rubble in the secret passageway. And he trapped Fred, Daphne, Velma, and the Inspector in the dungeon. So all these attempts, like, he was not far from using threatening violence. In fact, he was kind of like, he didn't care one way or the other. If he could, you know, not do violence, he would. But he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty if he had to. If it was an option and he figured, you know, it would help move his operation along much better and more effectively and more quickly, he dispatches of it. Like, he does it. You know, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He doesn't do it often, but he does do it enough to where he is a threatening presence because he's not opposed to harming the gang, even the Inspector, because he probably was just going to leave Fred, Daphne, Velma, and the Inspector all in that dungeon even after he smuggled all of the treasures that he's stolen from the museum out of the country, because he would have been caught otherwise if he let them go. So he would have let them die in there. He would have let the whole gang, Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, die in the secret passageway, and he almost dropped a load of rubble on Fred, Daphne, Velma, and he almost killed Shaggy and Scooby by taking off one of the tiles that they were hanging on, and Shaggy and Scooby could have dropped all the way down to the ocean where there were rocks around. So yeah, he was a fun and entertaining villain, and he was comedic and goofy, but he was not opposed to violence, and he was a threatening presence. So while he was fun and entertaining and mostly a goofy villain, he was a bit intimidating and threatening because he wasn't opposed to getting his hands dirty and threatening the gang's safety if it meant achieving his goals. So yeah, I thought the Ghost of Juan Carlos was good. He was both fun, entertaining, as well as intimidating and threatening. Outside of costume, I found Captain Eddie to be good. He was good enough. Like, he told the backstory of General Juan Carlos, but he didn't really do much beyond that, but that's okay. Like, that's enough. Like, as long as a villain outside of costume either provides backstory for the villain or does something to note, I feel like that's good enough. And he provides the backstory. Ideally, although it's not, you know, a well-detailed backstory, like there's still a lot of mystery about it, he still gives backstory for the villain. So he at least fulfills that basic role of providing the backstory of General Juan Carlos and why he's haunting that fortress. I thought there were a good number of suspects in the episode. So you had 3 suspects in the episode. You had Inspector Armendez, you had Captain Eddie, and you had the Hall Records curator. All of them were equally suspicious. There was 1 villain, so 3 suspects. All of them were equally suspicious. Captain Eddie provided the backstory. Inspector Armendez was following the gang for the majority of the episode, but it's revealed that he's a good figure. He's a figure of authority, and he was a policeman. And the Hall of Records curator, you know, just acted suspiciously. He was very hostile and mean towards the gang. He was watching them in the window, which, like I said in the review, that behavior never gets explained. But maybe the guy had a bad day. Maybe he was an accomplice to the operation. I don't know. Maybe he was doing something suspicious outside of this mystery. Who knows? We'll never know. They never explain his suspicious behavior, but they're all equally suspicious in different ways. So there's a good pool of suspects in this episode. I found the motive of the episode to be good as well. So Captain Eddie's motive was that essentially he wanted to scare everyone away from the fortress until he could smuggle all the stolen art treasures from the museum out of the country. Now, smuggling isn't anything new. Treasures aren't anything new. Although these are treasures from museum. I don't think we've had, you know, a villain steal from a museum some art treasures and try to smuggle them out of the country. We may have before. I can't remember. It's, you know, we've had a lot of episodes, you know, before this, so I can't remember if this motive has been done really, you know, before in the Scooby Doo franchise. But whether it has or hasn't, I think what makes the motive good for me is I like the execution of the motive. I like the layers to it. The guy, you know, basically he robs the museum. He finds a secret passageway from the museum to the fortress. He uses he makes a cool he uses the legend of Juan Carlos and his ghost. I don't know if he made up the backstory or not. Maybe the backstory, you know, was already established and he just used it to his advantage. But he used the fortress to his advantage by making hollow cannonballs, putting a couple of treasures in the cannonballs, attach the cannonballs to the pink parachutes, and then shooting them out to sea towards his boat, and then presumably would land softly near his boat or on his boat, depending on the trajectory. But the fact that he was able to explain that by saying, oh, the general likes to shoot off, you know, the ghost likes to, you know, shoot off the cannonballs at night, you know, was a really good cover. You know, there's a good amount of layers to it. Like, he takes advantage of the legend and mystery and backstory of the general to his advantage. And it's actually a pretty smart and unique motive that he's shooting off these cannonballs with parachutes, these hollow cannonballs with parachutes, and getting treasure slowly but surely out of the country and smuggling it out of the country. And he was quite close to actually getting all of it. He just unfortunately was not able to deter the gang away from the fortress. But yeah, I think the design and the motive was really cool. The execution of it was really cool. I like the layers to it. And while it may not be a wholly original motive, because we've had smuggling, I think we may have had museum, you know, art treasure, possibly robberies before, though I don't think we have. I don't think we've had someone rob a museum. We have people rob, other buildings, but I don't think we've had a robbery for museum artifacts. If we have, it's been quite a while, because I can't, remember that. But essentially, the motive has enough layers to it to where it's not very bland and generic. It has a lot of cool layers to it. It's very unique, and I like the steps he takes to achieve his motive. And I think it was a well thought out motive. Like he thought everything through. It's just unfortunately he was not able to deter the gang away from the fortress. I found the mystery of the episode to be good as well. So the only mystery I found in this episode was really, why was the ghost of Juan Carlos shooting these cannonballs off? Is it just a scare tactic for him? Is he trying to scare people away by shooting them off? Is it just something he did in life that he's repeating in death? Is it related to his death? Is it related to one of his battles? Like, why is he doing this action? Is this ghost just repeating what he did in life? Is it a scare tactic? What's the purpose of the ghost shooting the cannonballs off? Shooting the cannons off, basically. You could say there's mystery about the villain as well, about who he was, because we don't get a lot of backstory to him. But that's not really important, so it's really just like, why is he shooting off the cannons at the fortress? Because we know why he's haunting the fortress, because he's this general, and he was, and presumably he probably was, he worked there, he was probably, the one who guarded it throughout his life, and protected it. So it's we're not really questioning exactly why he's haunting this, fortress. Really, it's just like, why is he shooting off the cannons? But still, that's a nice, effective mystery, and we do get good answers to it. So I feel like the mystery overall was not too bad. I found the clues of the episode to be good as well. So the clues of this episode were essentially the hot cannon that Shaggy and Scooby found, the hollow cannonballs that Scooby found, the pink parachutes that both Shaggy and I believe Fred found, and the map of the secret passageway from the museum to the fortress that Daphne found in the Hall of Records book. So all of these clues were really good. They help explain how the villain was able to achieve his motive. It doesn't narrow down the list of suspects, but it does point towards a motive for the episode. So the clues not only explain how he's achieving his motive, but it also points to what his potential motive is. And it is that it's basically connected to the museum robbery that they established in the beginning of the episode. I found the atmosphere of the episode to be good as well. So I did feel tension and suspense throughout this episode, mainly due to the villain and his attempts to hurt the gang, as well as the inspector, at different points in the episode. Like I said before, he threatened the gang's safety plenty of times. So that created a tension and suspenseful atmosphere, because you didn't know how far he was going to take his actions, how far he was willing to go to achieve his motive. But he tries to kill Shaggy and Scooby, like I said in the beginning of the episode. Then he tries to kill the entire gang down in the secret passageway. And he tries to kill Fred, Daphne, Velma, and the inspector in the dungeon, basically. He leaves them there to presumably rot and die. So this villain really enhanced the atmosphere, because he provided tension and suspense, because we weren't sure how far he was going to take his actions. He clearly was not above threatening the gang's safety. He wasn't very bloodthirsty, like he didn't do it all the time, but he did it when he felt when it was an option, basically. Like, he was versatile. If he could, do something, if he could just scare them and get them away that way, he'd be fine with it. But he was not opposed to trying more harmful and potentially life-threatening, tactics if it meant he could achieve his motive. So yeah, the atmosphere was good, and the villain provided great tension and suspense by threatening the gang's safety and the inspector's safety throughout different points in the episode. And my final positive is I found the setting of the episode to be good as well. So the main setting of the episode is, of course, Puerto Rico, specifically the El Morro Fortress. But we explore different parts of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a very unique and fresh setting. Like in the last episode with Italy, We haven't seen Puerto Rico as a Scooby Doo setting before, so this was a really nice and unique and fresh setting that we hadn't had in the franchise up to this point. And I like that we explored different parts of it. You know, we had the Elmore Fortress, the Hall of Records, the museum. You know, we went to different parts of Puerto Rico, and I think that was really cool. And I did think the Elmore Fortress was cool because I don't think we've had a fortress as a setting for a Scooby-Doo episode either. We've had castles, but not fortresses. I don't think we've had fortresses yet. So this was the first episode I believe we had a fortress setting. And I think it was great. I think it was cool the way they, how they established Elmore Fortress, you know, and how they explored different parts of it. But we also weren't confined to the fortress, and we went to different places throughout Puerto Rico. So yeah, I think Puerto Rico was done well. I think the Elmore Fortress specifically was done well. I think they were both unique and different and fresh settings that we hadn't seen yet in the franchise before, so I really like the setting of the episode. Overall, guys, I would personally recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. This is just a surprisingly good episode. This was fantastic. I did not expect this episode to be as good as it was. This episode was awesome. It was fantastic. It was pitch perfect. I had no issues with the episode. I liked every aspect of it. I really had a great time with it. I think it was well executed. It was a very surprisingly good episode and is easily the best episode of season 3 so far and one of the best episodes of the show so far. It definitely is behind Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats, as I don't think that episode will ever be topped. But it is definitely up there with one of the best episodes of the series and is really high up on my list. And I'm genuinely surprised. I did not think that it was going to be this good, but it really was a great watch. It was a fun episode. So yeah, I would definitely recommend you guys check this out. If you want if you're looking for a good episode in season 3, this is the best one so far. I don't know how the next 2 will be, but for right now, this is the one I would point to if someone asks what, season 3 episode they should watch of the Scooby Doo Show. Watch this episode. Really good episode. Pitch perfect. I had no issues with it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you agree with me? Do you think this is a really surprisingly good and pitch perfect episode? Maybe you just think it's good, but there are some negatives for you. Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Do you disagree with me? Do you think this is a terrible episode or a below average episode and there are more flaws to it that you see that I don't see? Or do you think, somewhere in the middle, basically, where you think it's decent, it's average, it's okay, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. Obviously, I'll have more Scooby-Doo reviews on the way. We cover all things ranging from the Scooby-Doo TV shows to the films, the video games, and the books. This is a Scooby-focused channel. We cover all things in the Scooby-Doo franchise. So if you're a diehard Scooby-Doo fan like me and love talking all things Scooby-Doo, then, or if you're just a casual fan who wants, some advice on, what episodes to check out, what shows to check out, or want to chime in on your first-time thoughts on these episodes, then come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby-Doo content. In my next video, I'll continue my 2025 Halloween special with a review of Season 3, Episode 15 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled The Warlock of Wimbledon. I'm actually really interested in this episode as it's been a little while, but I believe I have some vague memories of the episode, so I don't have many high expectations going into it, but considering I didn't have high expectations going into this one, and it was fantastic, hopefully it can only go up from here. It'll definitely be interesting to see how this episode holds up. It's been a little while, but I remember bits and pieces of it. So yeah, I'm genuinely curious on, how they'll achieve, the, London setting and the warlock villain. So it's definitely going to be really interesting, the next episode, if they can continue the streak of good episodes. We're winding down on season 3. We got 2 episodes left, the next one, and then episode 16. So hopefully season 3 can end on a high note and end with a bang. But if you want to know my thoughts on Season 3, Episode 15 of the Scooby Doo Show, The Warlock of Wimbledon, then come join me next time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby